focus group. Learned audience, I really don't know how many of you will agree with me, but it seemed like the world as we knew has hit the pause button. The pandemic that has shuttered economies around the world has also affected the education system in both developing and developed countries. And as reported by World Economic Forum, some 1.5 billion students, close to 90%, are no longer able to physically access their institutions. The impact has been dramatic, but also transformative for the entire higher education sector. Universities are responding to the coronavirus crisis by implementing many initiatives to limit its impact. While each level of education, be it primary or secondary, faces its unique challenges, it's the higher education segment that by necessity is initiating a learning revolution. I believe that this COVID-19 has become a major source of education disruption. For all of us, the teaching and learning and assessing the impact of teaching learning have been very painful and stressful during this time. But it also has compelled us to reimagine the education system. It is giving all the stakeholders, that includes faculty members, students, policymakers, members of the community, a better understanding of our current education system, its vulnerabilities, its shortcomings, and people are agreeing that this is a call for long overdue reform of our education system. The pandemic taught us the relevance of being digitally literate to function and progress in a world which is controlled by artificial intelligence, in which the social distancing is becoming very important and greater digitalization of services is becoming the rule. I just believe that COVID-19 is triggering us to challenge the deep-rooted notions of when, where, and how we deliver education, the role of colleges and universities, the importance of lifelong learning, and the distinctions which we are drawing between the tradition and non-traditional learners. However, the question still remains the same. Can the traditional campus-based universities adapt by choosing the right technologies and approaches for educating and engaging their students? Can they ensure the required employability skills? Can they engage the students remotely? Are the higher education ready and prepared for future? We have excellent speakers today to share their expertise, their successes, and assist us in addressing the challenges faced by higher education institutions. We at American University in the Emirates, we strongly believe that an open dialogue is imperative to better understand the challenges and strike a balance that serves both students and faculty members well. I'm certain we all will benefit today from the deliberation of our eminent speakers, and the successes and failures that will unfold during this deliberation will give us all a better grasp of the future of higher education. With no further delay, it gives me immense pleasure to call upon an eminent professional, educationist, who has made a distinct contribution to modernizing and revitalizing the existing education system by establishing 3 universities and is our founding president of American University in the Emirates. Professor Muthanna Abdul Razak, I would like to invite you to deliver your welcome address.
Thank you, Provost Bilasha. Really, I would like to welcome you all, and especially the panelists, by accepting to join this. As I said, let us call it conference because we're going to talk about many topics, which is really, they are hot topic, I mean, with the current issues. But I don't know, Abhilasha, you didn't left anything to me to talk. I mean, you cover all the areas, unfortunately. So I don't know, I might pull out or say thank you to everybody. Fine, as I mentioned before, United Arab Emirates is a small country, but we have 127 universities. And in all areas of specializations. I don't want to talk about others, but I want to brief you about our university. We are the university being established in 2006, which is still a baby university in comparison with George Mason or Florida or whatever university you're mentioning in the United States or in UK. From day one, we raised the slogan that nothing is impossible and we should lead and others follow. This was the vision. And also we believe that we should graduate leaders rather than excellent managers. So we have concentrated on 3 areas based on this philosophy of education, that not only to bridge the gap between theory and practice, but also we concentrate on another dimension, which is the soft skills. Our graduates should be creative, initiative, they have critical thinking inside and outside the box, because if you keep thinking outside the box, you will never find the box one day. And the last one, you have to make a decision in a crisis. So those three characteristics of the graduates, they will make them leaders in their area in future. We have 7 colleges, some of them unique in the MENA and the region. One of them is the College of Security and Global Studies. We have emergency management, crisis management, disaster management, risk management, security, intelligence, diplomacy. And here when we say security, it doesn't mean to take you to jail. No, we are talking about information security, food security, water security, medicine security, border security, complex security, even stadium security, biological security, nuclear power security. So all types of security to provide the market with high qualified students or graduates to move directly with a limited training in those areas. We have another college which is in sport. We have all of them master's degree. We have sports management, sports law, sports marketing, sports media, sports journalism, sports tourism, and even legacy. In other colleges, they are traditional one. Also, there are very unique programs. In business, for example, we have logistic and supply chain management, hospital and healthcare management, insurance management. In computer science, we have ITM, information technology management. We have digital forensics, which is the cybercrime. Now we are moving to artificial intelligence, data science, and some programs, new programs. We have fashion design, interior design, graphic design, and also digital animation. In media, the same. We have education, and also we have law. The only college they teach in Arabic language, because the law in Arab countries depend on Sharia and our religion, Islam. We have about 30, we have knowledge management program, we have the future foresight program, all of them masters. So we are trying not to copy other universities, rather than to provide the community, the people in United Arab Emirates and neighboring countries with the program to meet the market demands. We don't want to go to any traditional programs that students, when they graduated, they stay at home. We want to ensure actually that students, when they finish their degrees, either bachelor or master, to get a job immediately in Dubai or in other Emirates, in United Arab Emirates. COVID-19 hit us quickly. In 1 week, the Ministry of Higher Education decided to go on distance learning or blended learning, whatever you want to call it. At that time, all universities, they have enough infrastructure to go for this? No, including us. But within 1 week, we gave the students 2-week break as a spring break. while the faculty members and the staff 1 week. And we conducted many intensive courses, training programs really, to let the students and the faculty how they will teach in such approach, which is they are not familiar with actually. And we faced many challenges during those 5 months. But I think we have overcome them by 85%, especially the assessment, the final exam, midterm exam, the practical side of those courses, the internship. So it was really 24 hours working for all faculties here and the staff, I mean, admin or technical staff, and the students as well. And now we are preparing ourselves to go for fall, I mean, next academic year. For this reason, I request, by the way, when the COVID-19 hit us here, I form a committee called Task Force Committee, which is chaired by myself, with 7 subcommittees in all areas. And really, they have done an excellent, efficient, effective work. They help all the colleges from the provost downward with all the required infrastructure systems, whatever, network connection, even the government. They increase the connection with the free of charge to the maximum to facilitate conducting all those lectures by distance learning. And you know, people, maybe I can say this in Arab countries or in the Middle East, they don't trust distance learning. They don't feel that you will graduate students with high quality, or the teaching will be rigor and all these things. But now the situation being proved that to the level that the ministry has started, because you know we are under the, we cannot do anything without the approval of a commission called Commission for Academic Accreditation. And we are not free like in United States universities. We are not allowed to offer any program, any specialization. Even if you want to change a policy, we have to approach the CAA, which is Commission for Academic Accreditation, to get the approval based on the visit, reports. We have to submit narratives to convince the international committees to approve any changes. So the CAA is really doing excellent job in ensuring the quality of teaching and learning. But the change now happened regarding distance learning, and they start believing, I can say, they move for this direction. And there is another change, which is enforcing the experience and the skills of the graduates. We were trying to bridge the gap between theory and practice. But how much? I mean, how much experience and skills and how much theory? But now we should move ahead, because the market and the graduates should be really equipped with enough skills and experience rather than concentrating on theory, which is after the, if this COVID or this crisis is going to finish. Even the graduation, I just let you feel happy with the creativity of the university. We're going to enter Guinness by delivering our graduation ceremony, which is the 10th graduation ceremony, to be done by drones. So students will come to the car park and they stay in the car. They are not allowed to step out because you know the social distance. And when they call them from the stage by the chairman of board of trustees and other members and the president, the vice presidents, they will hear their names in the car, either through the FM or their phone, radio. And then the drone will fly from the stage with their photo plus the certificate, go to the car and deliver it to them there. And this is the first graduations going to done on this planet, and Guinness has accepted this approach. Students, they have achieved last year about, I think, 15 new patents because we have a center of creativity. We have a center of, or let us say, club of debate club, because a presentation for me is not enough. We want to defend our what we are presenting. We have an international council of women. Four vice presidents, I think now they are women at the university. So we are supporting them. And the last college we have, I propose to establish and is done, is a college of equine studies for horses. Equestrians, which is, you know, this sector become as a business rather than as a hobby. So nutrition, breeding, stable management, farm management. So I can say this is in a brief. I don't want to go for details about what we have done. And even for your information, last year the ministry has inspected all, they send inspectors. The first time they used this term to send teams for each university to see what they have done since April till this moment about teaching and learning. And they have done their task and they submitted their reports to the ministry and the CAA to see what we are doing. So this is even, for example, in some specialization, which is in design and cybersecurity, students, they cannot download this heavy software on their laptops at home. So we supply them with all the servers. We empty all the labs and we send all those, computers, to them just to let them work in a right way. And Abhilash, I think I don't need to give a lecture. We can talk hours, and I will, when you say 90 minutes, so I think I should stop here, and if there is any question, I'm happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Buthanna, for your opening remarks. And practically, your words are so important for all of us because it's like setting the stage for further discussion. We have 5 eminent panelists today, and as per the agenda, we will have each panelist present for 5 to 6 minutes maximum, and it will be followed by a key question, an opinion poll by the audience. So the audience should be ready with the question and to answer or to choose one of the options when we are going to raise this question to the audience. I would like to now invite Dr. Yusuf Al-Assaf, who is the president of Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT Dubai, which is a leading not-for-profit international branch of Rochester Institute of Technology, Rochester, New York. And it is established in conjunction with the Dubai government in Dubai Silicon Oasis. Prior to joining RIT as president, Dr. Assaf was the Dean of College of Engineering at the American University of Sharjah, where he was one of the founding members of electrical engineering and computer engineering programs. He has his PhD from Oxford University and leadership training from Cornell University. With extensive international experience, Dr. Assaf is a senior education management professional. He will be sharing with us today the major challenge in the higher education sector since the announcement of the closure from March 2020, specifically in regard to you. Dr. Al-Assaf, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Doctor, and good evening, my colleagues. I will not speak about my university. I would like to speak about what is going to be the future of higher education because of COVID-19. But can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Yeah. You see, higher education, we had a major problem even before COVID-19. Industry 4 really changed the landscape of the opportunities of work for students, and many of the jobs which we have at the moment, they will disappear, and many of the jobs they will be created, we don't know what these are. So even before COVID-19, we had the challenge as people in charge of universities, how do we design curricula, university activities in order to make sure that actually we prepare students to the future and make them ready for the future. And many universities, they started doing that by, adopting technology, rethinking about curricula, using flipped classrooms, interactive learning, adding innovation as part of the curricula, and so on. And, we had some challenges, major challenges, regardless, sometimes from the accrediting body saying, look, you cannot do this, this is too much not controlled and so on. So the accreditation was an issue. How do you really convince the accreditation agencies that what we are doing is really for the future? Another challenge is from the faculty themselves. Faculty, they like the comfort zone, and sometimes they don't like really to adopt technology, and because they don't know what they don't know. Sometimes actually it's the parents. Parents, they think, look, I am sending my kid to learn these things, and if you are really adopting new things, maybe they will not feel comfortable. And we reached a stage where many people, they say, look, I'm spending too much money on my kids and their education, and suddenly they end up having a degree and they don't find jobs. So what's really happening? And suddenly we created some sort of tension, frustration in the community. And at the same time, when you look at the government, especially Ministry of Work, they tell you, look, we don't really create jobs. We control and manage and make legislation regarding jobs. When you talk to industry, they say, look, we expect them to be ready. We don't really have, especially in this part of the world, they should be ready for the job, and we don't have really programs for training them. Suddenly, we ended up with students where universities not doing what they should do in order to make them ready. We end up with government which really doesn't really create jobs as such, and industry which is really not willing in order to train them. Although we started doing all of that and trying to adjust our curricula and delivery and so on, suddenly COVID-19 came into the picture, and we had really now to adapt to things quickly. Now, COVID-19 is like somebody pushing you. And while you are pushing and you would like to settle down, you start creating solutions, like, for example, using online learning and so on and so on. And we start thinking, can we continue using this after COVID-19? Now, my call is saying, look, when you are pushed to do something, maybe you try to find solutions that are suitable for the push and not making you falling down, but you cannot use these after that because these are made for specific conditions, which are the COVID-19. For example, do we create autism by doing complete online learning? I mean, would the students become autistic because we tell them, look, stay in the room, learn by yourself, and take your degree, and suddenly they don't know how to deal with people after that? We are really helping maybe by using complete online, not really helping the students and not helping the economy. Second, many of the experiences our students, they face during the university, maybe they start, living other partners, maybe they start, exchanging and so on. So life itself at the university is very critical for students and their future. The last one, innovation, which we are pushing for all universities, regardless where you go. In America, our main campus in Rochester or here and other universities like your universities, innovation cannot be done in silence. You have really to meet people. You have to integrate with people in order to innovate. And if we continue doing online learning, maybe that will be a passive route to innovation. So I feel now, as we move on, there are two things which to me, they are very clear. University will become a service. So I created the term called university as a service, like city as a service. It will be a platform. So for me as a student, I don't have really to pay too much money to pay for a campus which has been built, many buildings, and I am not using these buildings. So it could be a platform where I just only take what I need from that university, and maybe actually I can take courses from another university. So for example, as you are going shopping, I take this course from here, I take that course from industry. I take this course with another university, I do this project, I do my individualized training such that the degree is suitable for me, for the environment, for the economy, and so on. So I think with time, university will become a service, and we need to have more integration in that thing. The second point, industry, they should really integrate with the universities in the curriculum. If we imagine that, for example, Harvard University, one day maybe they will make a partnership with Google, and they create a university where Google can do the online learning and Harvard can do the certification and accreditation, all of us will be in trouble, because many students they will find it cheap because I can get my degree from Harvard. And that is really not right. And I think all industry, they should partner with the universities in order not only to help students and giving them advices, but really to be part of the curricula, part of the delivery, part of assigning projects and innovation projects to the students. And that's why, as we moved in building the new campus, maybe you have seen the picture in my screen before, this is a new campus. And we said, look, we are going to develop a new campus, which is going to be an open experiment for the students. It's an open lab. We don't have any gates, we don't have any borders, and we need themes. So we created 4 themes for the new campus. It should be a smart campus, and that's why we have $1 million smart city innovation lab, where we tell students, why don't you implement smart solution and proof of concept at the campus and make the campus ready? So instead of buying a smart solution, why don't we create it? We are helping students in order to learn. Let them create smart solutions and a proof of concept, and then after that can go outside the university. Even companies, they can bring their problems and prove their concept within the campus. So it's going to be a smart campus. Digital transformation is part of it. Second point is sustainability, beyond just only having solar panels to reduce the electricity bill, but or to do research on sustainability using different kind of energy sources or management tools, and to create solutions in order to really look into the energy of the future. The last one is the innovation center. And actually, if I just take off my picture, the thing which you see in the middle, actually, this is going to be our innovation center. And it's going to be actually open to the public, to the community, to anyone who has an idea about innovation or a problem about innovation. Come there and let's make a market where allow our students, faculty to engage with industry, and industry to engage among themselves in order really to create a solution. The last point is actually connected campus, allowing companies to be hosted in the campus. So we create an ecosystem on the campus where you have companies, they do business there, they give our students and faculty the opportunity to work with their projects, maybe connect with the government and the public entities there. I think this is the kind of university we need to create in the future, where it's a complete ecosystem where students, they will have so many opportunities beyond just only learning a course. It's something like, for example, you go to Starbucks, not because of the coffee, you go because of the environment, but there is coffee. If you go to McDonald's, because there is a family atmosphere and there is burger. Maybe one day we could say, look, you come to the university, there are so many opportunities you can do there, but by the way, there are courses and curriculum which you can take advantage of. And I think this is going to be the future. It's a hybrid between face-to-face and online, and we take advantage of online as long as it makes sense in the journey and the future of the student. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yusuf. Thank you. If I just take some of your points, I can see that sustainability, innovation, digital transformation, smart solution, and smart campus, and the focus on complete ecosystem are some of the points which you have highlighted. I just have a question, and I will probably pose this question to the audience as well, that if you see, what, in your opinion, what is the major challenge in the higher education sector since the announcement of closure from March 2020? And I would like to ask all the audience to please pick up the option, whichever they think that was the most important challenge for them, the major challenge in the higher education sector for them. Professor Yusuf, what is your take on it? Audiences probably, meanwhile, they are taking their time to pick up the option, but I would like to ask your opinion. We cannot hear you, sir.
There were many challenges. It depends on the individuals. For example, some faculty, they had a problem with using technology. Do we have enough infrastructure in the university, in the country in order to do this? Especially Emirates is very lucky because we have very good infrastructure. But other places, they don't have the infrastructure. And suddenly you ended up with being unfair to some students and their families and so on. But I feel the most challenge was adapting to change. We were not ready to adapt to change, whether as a university, as agencies, as a government, as students, as parents. And suddenly we ended up with something we need to adjust. So I think maybe in the future we need to become ready and become robust in adapting to change the moment it happens, because now it's COVID-19, God knows what is going to be the next change imposed on us.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thanks a lot. Maybe I would like to ask the IT to please show us the result of the poll. May I request the audience again to give their opinion? So most of them are saying that the technical readiness of the institution is one of the major challenge. And then it is followed by ensuring academic integrity. Thank you very much, audience, for your active participation. We will give you more questions, and Professor Yusuf, we might have more questions for you, but we will go to the next speaker and we will come back to you. Our next speaker is Mark Ginsberg. He is the interim provost and executive vice president of George Mason University. Dr. Ginsberg's career spans more than a 35-year period as a professor, psychologist, and a skilled administrator. He has published extensively in the areas of education, psychology, human development, and human services. In addition, he has lectured and presented at over 200 conferences, seminars, and other educational meetings and professional development events, both within the States, United States, and internationally. Prior to joining GMU, George Mason University, Dr. Ginsberg served for more than a decade as the executive director of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and for 20 years as a faculty member at Johns Hopkins University. Professor Ginsberg, the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you.
From you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to be with you at this gathering about a very, very important topic. And let me begin with a very brief apology that unfortunately I have to depart in about a half an hour for another set of meetings, but I'm glad to be with you for a period of time and to participate in the discussion. And it's a good jumping off point for what Professor Yusuf had said, because many of the points that he made, I think, are highly relevant and highly pertinent to what I might say. First, a couple of brief words about George Mason University. George Mason University is a Research One university. We're the largest comprehensive research university in the state of Virginia. Our university has over 38,000 students across a variety of fields, 10 colleges and schools, and is comprehensive and very engaged in our community as we sit in the National Capital Region of the United States, just outside of Washington, D.C. This last semester in the spring was momentous for all of us. These times are both unprecedented, they've been unpredictable, and they continue to be unprecedented and unpredictable. Over a 2-week period in March, we transitioned over 9,000 courses at George Mason from being on our beautiful campus and to being on the internet and online in 2 weeks, over 9,000 courses. That was truly Herculean. And as I have said to my colleagues on our faculty many times, as our Asian colleagues in China like to say, that crises present both dangers and opportunities. Clearly, there were many dangers associated with the pivot, the shift to online, but I also think it presented us with many important opportunities. One of my favorite quotes is that a text without a context is only a pretext. And so let me try to paint a little bit about the context. The context is at George Mason, we pride ourselves as providing access to excellence. Our students come from every walk of life. We're a public university, a state university. We have a majority of our students are minorities in the United States, also a majority are first generation college students, the first in their family to attend college. We have a wide range of ages, from students in the traditional collegiate age range to many students returning for advanced training at our university. The context is one of trying to be available to both change lives, but also be accessible to many lives. We pride ourselves, unlike many universities that think about how selective they could be, how many lives we're able to change. And so the context of making a shift from a fully or nearly fully on-site campus to a nearly fully online university in 2 weeks with over 9,000 courses provided quite a challenge. It was indeed a crisis. It indeed had dangers, but we also found that it provided opportunities. What were some of those opportunities? Well, first, it gave us an opportunity to both explore, to test, to try, to engage, and now to more fully integrate within our university a full range of new technologies, a full range of new approaches. We knew as an educator, and in one of the programs, I served for a dean at George Mason for 10 years, leading our College of Education and Human Development before coming into the position of provost. One of our programs is in the area of learning technologies, and I've learned for a long time that the technologies of learning, the virtual and remote and online technologies that have evolved very rapidly, and they continue to grow in sophistication. But pivoting so that we can take advantage of those technologies is very different from understanding if they exist. And so we needed to put into place very quickly training programs to uplift not only the access for our students, but to provide training opportunities for our faculty so that they could fully engage the technologies. You know, if you have a new piece of software and you put it in your computer, if not having it on your computer, the key is being able to use all of its features. And what we tried to do is to help our faculty learn how to use many of the features of these new technologies. And some of these technologies, students would like to think that they're cost effective and they may reduce the cost of education. The reality of it is, it actually is very expensive for universities to make these pivots. And in fact, the cost structures in many cases can be higher than on-site learning. And we've needed to figure out ways to bridge the gap between the tuition models we have, the financial models we have, and the cost structures that we have. Another one of those challenges. You know, when the campus was a place students came, the notion had been that students come to education. And now with online, what we're doing is bringing education to students. And that provides us with a very different kind of opportunity. How can we meaningfully bring education to our students in a way that allows for access, yet also maintains quality? And those really are the key challenges. And we're finding that there's some cohort differences. So a group of 18 or 20 or 25-year-olds who are digital natives, as we like to say, are very different positioned than the digital immigrants who comprise the folks in my age range. And the same for our faculty. We have digital immigrants and digital natives among our faculty. So we needed to understand that diversity comes in many forms, as we know, and we value the richness of diversity at our university very much. But that we needed to pivot ourselves to understand that diversity also comes in terms of the ability, the capacity, and the experience to both access and use technology effectively. And we've also seen in the United States that the school systems, the P-12 schools, the public schools, had also rapidly shifted, as you know, I'm sure the case in many of your nations as well, to online education. And the lift actually was much greater for many of our public schools. But now we find in the capital region of the United States, in the Washington, D.C. metro area, every one of our public school systems has decided to remain virtual and remote in the fall, at least to begin that way in the fall. Every single one of our students in the elementary, middle, and high schools will be online in the fall in our region. And that's putting additional pressure on the universities to think about what the right balance is for universities also. How can we safely reopen? At the same time, how can we effectively provide in this new environment online education to our students? And that means understanding the new models. That means helping our students to engage new experiences. That means supporting them in different kinds of ways virtually, whether that has to do with advising, whether it has to do with the library, whether that has to do with being able to help students work with each other in small teams, whether that's accessing both information and accessing faculty as a support. We needed to find new ways, and we have found new ways to keep what I call the psychological sense of community of our university intact, while at the same time we're contacting each other in new and different ways. We've tried to find ways that these new experiences become new opportunities for our faculty, for our staff, for our students, and also for engaging a new infrastructure. We've needed to adapt and adjust in all these modalities. And I'm very, very pleased to say that as we have come through a very tumultuous spring, as we have planned for an unprecedented and unpredictable time this fall, that I believe that we will never return to the way things were, that we've entered a new era in higher education. We've entered a new period where we will forever be more reliant and more engaged with technology in ways that 6 months ago we thought were possible, but we weren't sure were viable. We knew were possible, but we didn't know were feasible. And now what we're finding is they're both viable and feasible, and it's going to be our challenge, I think, and I'll end here, to think fully how we can more effectively integrate online and on-site education, how we can effectively combine the new technologies with the older ways of doing things so we can further enhance and strengthen the student experience. Our role as educators is to develop and enhance the knowledge, skill, and abilities of our students by helping them to learn and grow and develop. And I think we found new tools to do that, and I look forward to continue to engage those tools in the future. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today, and I wish everybody well. I wish you all health. I hope you remain healthy and well, and that together we engage in this new frontier of education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Mark. It was really thought-provoking, the points which you raised, and especially the way you said that instead of bringing students to education, it's very important to take the education now to the students. But one of the challenge which people face is that fair assessment, abiding by academic integrity. So these are some of the questions. So in your opinion, what do you think that while the universities were traditionally, conventionally offering courses, now when it is online, how to ensure the academic integrity, which is very important. And meanwhile, I would like audience, maybe they can give their opinion as well.
So you're asking me to respond to that too?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, it's a very, very intriguing question, because I think we have a number of faculty who have been reliant on paper and pencil measures on multiple choice tests or fill in the blank test to try to assess students' understanding. I myself believe that that's not a very effective way to understand if students understand, that it may be a way to understand whether they've learned specific kinds of things, but I don't think it gives us a really good window into what they know. It doesn't give us an understanding about how they apply and how they can engage the information that we provided them. So I think we're going to be pivoting as a field to think about new ways to assess that are more like assessment centers, how it is the information that they have learned, the information we've taught, can be applied in ways that students can demonstrate the application, not just the recitation of information. So I favor the last choice in that list you provided. And I said that crises become opportunities, but they also have dangers. The danger is that I think this is going to mean that we have to rethink our models of assessment and reapply the way we do things. And I can see the group agreed with me, so that's good to hear.
So I can see that as you recommended, most of the members in the audience, they are also recommending the last one, to convert the exam to research project and assessment.
Very good.
It's unfortunate. I'm sure there might be some other question. And if you will stay with us, probably the audience will have some more questions for you.
Sure.
But currently we are moving with our third speaker. We will keep the questions after the speakers have presented their viewpoint. So our next speaker is Leah. Leah she has been a member of the leadership team at Florida International University. And you will take care of the presentation. She has been associated with Florida International University online for the past 13 years. and she has managed the operational, fiscal, and human capital aspects of the department throughout the tremendous growth period. She served as the institutional representative on the State University System Committee for Distance Learning, Cost Modeling. She supported the unit in reaching its milestone of 100 plus program offerings and has contributed to the efforts of many in graduating close to 10,000 fully online students by the end of this academic year. As expert, I would like Leah to please share her experience in course delivery and assessment. What are the challenges and what are your recommendations in this regard? Over to Leah, please.
Sure. Good evening or good morning. Thank you to our hosts for the invitation today. Should I advance my own slides or?
Hani, the slides, please.
Okay, thank you. So I also wanted to give you some context about my institution and our experience in online education. Florida International University is one of the country's largest public research institutions. Much like GMU, FIU is also a minority serving and first generation serving institution and an R1 research institution. We serve over 57,000 students, 45,000 of which take at least one online course each year. The next slide, please. It's important to take a look back here pre-COVID. So higher education institutions were seeing an increase in distance learning. The primary reason learners were choosing the distance learning modality was due to commitments that wouldn't allow them to come to campus. So before COVID, there was already a high market demand for an alternative to campus delivery, and because of varied personal commitments. Now, COVID has simply amplified that demand and made the modality a necessity rather than a choice. And for us in particular at FIU, we realized an 18% growth pre-COVID from 2018 to 2019. So we were seeing the demand take shape in real time. Next slide, please. We were fortunate that a lot of the readiness that was needed to support the heavy transition to remote under the emergency circumstances was something our institution already had in place due to our geographic location and the need to have hurricane preparedness planned for academic continuity. So the visual here gives you some insight as to how drastic the shift in our modalities of teaching was. Our schedule shifted from 70% of our courses using the classroom to now a maximum capacity with physical distancing of 30% of courses using the classroom. So as you can see, the emergency modality of remote was something that we, like many institutions, were forced to introduce into our ecosystem. Next slide, please. Even the labeling of the modality was a challenge that we found. So clarity in the differences between the modalities was needed for faculty to understand expectations and students to know when they are expected to come to campus or not. Budget considerations were a challenge in the labeling. Our state has a distance learning fee that is assessed on online courses. So transitioning all of our face-to courses to online would have those financial implications to our students. We've been reiterating that remote is a temporary fix to an emergency situation, and then it would likely begin to disappear or perhaps when against evolve once our campus is being incrementally populated. Next slide. So in addition to deciding on clarifying the label, were all these more specific challenges. Scalability, could our platforms and services support the volume needed for this transition? We had a one-stop solution in place, which is our learning management system, Canvas. So our infrastructure was readily scalable. And again, back to our geographic location and our hurricane preparedness plan, all of our courses had a Canvas shell that was readily available to be utilized for remote instruction. Academic integrity. Amidst already existing concerns for academic integrity and assessments, how could we help faculty in particular feel comfortable about moving their courses to remote or online? And since our institution has been offering online for over 20 years, we've had a lot of experience with virtual proctoring. We still use ProctorU and HonorLock, some vendors in virtual proctoring, but we did deal with the learning curve and anxiety levels for those that haven't used those services before. And much like Professor Ginsberg said, we worked with faculty to build assessments that leave little room for students to violate academic integrity. In engagement and best practices, how could we prove to faculty and students that in the absence of the classroom, their course experience could still be engaging? After offering over 100 programs and having established a support model for instructional design that faculty depended on for enhancing their courses, those that had taught online in the past that were assigned face-to-face, the transition to remote was pretty seamless to them. But those that hadn't had that experience, we had to develop several communications and guides for both faculty and students regarding things like Zoom etiquette, for example. We explored several simulations for hands-on labs, and we hosted and are still hosting town halls for faculty and students to have a platform to ask university leadership questions. Training and support, how could we provide training and support to over 1,400 faculty members in time for the transition? We developed a remote teach ready micro-credential, and I'm really happy and proud to say we've been able to award it to over 850 faculty since March. We've expanded our faculty training that were Canvas or tech tool related, and we had to reposition our instructional design team. Our online modality of over 20 years has been an asynchronous model. And now we were asking them to transition to assisting faculty that are creating synchronous remote courses. For costs, our institution has always prioritized offering quality education affordably. In reality, remote does have costs. Our institution made the decision to not pass these costs on to the students. Affordability counts as another way that we're helping students financially. It's an initiative of ours through which we award courses an affordability medallion for those that have course materials that are at low or no cost with a threshold of $60. In the realm of student access, what kind of support could we provide our students to ensure they had the tools necessary to continue taking classes online or remotely? Our Division of IT set up a laptop and a hotspot distribution for students, which is still ongoing. But we did find through surveying that the majority of students were pretty well equipped for the shift to remote, but some did require extra support. Our Disability Resource Center also had to reimagine how they provided their services. And I think that brings us full circle to the landscape and the elements of the ecosystem that we're dealing with leading up to this coming academic year.
Thank you, Leah. I'm quite impressed with one point which you said about micro-credentialing. And a quick question comes that, are you offering this to outside FIU as well, or it is restricted to FIU?
Right now, I don't want to say it's restricted, but it's almost only applicable to FIU because of the way that we have built the training. But we have, luckily gotten that question from a lot of institutions. So it is something that we're looking to open up to make it a little more broad. So we're not talking about specifically how we do everything at FIU, and it will be applicable to other institutions.
When it comes to student engagement, so you mentioned that student engagement, you spoke about course, designing course assessment in a way to avoid academic integrity, but you also mentioned about student engagement during remote teaching. And these are a couple of options. So what is, in your viewpoint, what do you suggest? Members of the audience, you're free to please choose your option. But yes, Leah, what do you think?
So they're all really good, I think, aspects that instructors should include in their courses so that the student remembers that there's a person on the other side here. The same one that was in my classroom is still here supporting me remotely and wants me to succeed academically. And I really think the access and the transparency to which instructors are really handling this heroic effort is in itself an engaging students. I mean, of course, we have a lot of tools and technology that that can support engagement, but really how the instructor is creating their presence in the course. Doing several of these things is where we feel we get the highest level of engagement.
So apart from the options mentioned here, is there any other option you think is going to work very well?
Look, it was pretty even.
Yeah.
Sure, I think that flexibility, is something going into this fall term. Our plan right now is to open up face-to-face and to a limited capacity, like I had mentioned. But if we do start face-to-face and then we go remote, and our school systems haven't decided yet whether they're virtual or whether they're going to open. So I think, expressing the compassion and the flexibility to students that again, the faculty member is there to help them succeed, and they themselves are figuring out how to do it during this time. So really understanding on both sides is where I think we can maintain engagement during this time, right? Engagement pre-COVID is very different than what we're dealing with now.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. We are moving to our next speaker, Ron Thomas. Ron is the managing director of a strategy focus group, which is an international consulting firm based in Dubai and Singapore. We can go to the Thank you, Hani. He is also a senior faculty member of the Human Capital Institute, and he covers MENA and Asia Pacific and Africa region. He was recently selected as a business intelligence board member for Chief Learning Officer magazine. Ron is the former CEO of Great Place to Work in Gulf and CHRO of Al Raha Group, which is based in Riyadh. He holds certifications from HCI as Global Human Capital Strategist, Masters in Human Capital Strategist, and Strategic Workforce Planner, as well as in New York University. He has been identified as one of the top 5 HR leadership thinkers in the Middle East by CIPD, and he received an Outstanding Leadership Award for Global HR Excellence at the World Human Resource Development Congress, and was named as one of the 50 most talented global HR leaders in Asia. His work has been featured in Wall Street Journal, Workforce Management, and numerous international HR magazines, which is covering Africa, India, and Middle East. He's a columnist, blogger for magazines such as Insight Magazine, HR People of Africa, SHRM, and CEO.com. And he writes on leadership and organizational dynamics and at the HR Observer. He's a consultant and management educator as well. The best part is that Ron will be sharing today the employer's perspective on graduate employability. What skills are required, what capabilities are required, and especially when it comes to digital transformation, what the institution should do. Thank you, Ron, for accepting the invitation. Over to you.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. Can we move to the next slide? My presentation is going to look at what we're facing through two lenses. And one of those lenses will be looking at what's happening inside of organizations as we try and prepare for the reimagining stage, and I'll talk to that in just a minute. And then we'll flip it over and talk through from the talent side. And what does it mean for someone that's coming out of school? How do you compete for either your first opportunity, or could possibly be your next opportunity if you're not a student enlisting? Because career management is going to be focused on you moving forward, not the organization, and always remember that. So what is the new workforce going to look like going forward? There's a lot of discussion as it relates to this, and this is kind of the driving point. And so the way that I phrase that is through 3 categories: respond, February, March in the UAE. And now we're in somewhat of a recovery stage, but more importantly, from the organization side, what is the new model going to look like? And that's what we're going to talk through from that side. Can you flip the slide for me, please? So here's 8 key forces that organizations are trying to figure out. So as you talk through from your side, the challenges that you're facing from an education perspective, well, in a lot of cases, the organization, the corporate structure, is also dealing with kind of the same dynamics that you're dealing with. one of the themes that was coming through was around technology. That's the huge kind of bundle that's kind of in the way. How do we transition to a workforce that's working from home, working from anywhere? What is that new model going to look like? It will all be linked through technology. There's a growing demand for new skills, which we'll talk about when I get into the phase of careers and how do you move into an organization to bring value to the organization. How do you compete against that? Huge challenges, employees' expectation. In some parts of the world, there was a strict lockdown on allowing employees to work from home. So what happens now if they've worked from home and they did a great job, productivity in a lot of cases increased, and now you're saying, okay, reimagining the workforce, I need everyone to come back. There's safety issues concerned. You've already proven that you can work from a different model. You pick up the newspaper in and every day, there's examples of companies that are switching the model and going as far as moving from work from home to work from anywhere. There's a lot of test cases that's going on concerning this work from anywhere model. You get a better reach for talent. If I don't require you to say live in New York City or live in Dubai, if I can work from anywhere, why couldn't I do that? So organizations are trying to figure out what this new model is going to look like. The involving business environment. I read a case study 2 days ago concerning car dealerships. Because of the fact people couldn't come out, car dealerships revenue dropped. But the ones that made it through were the ones that already had an online model that you could go online, choose a car, choose the color, choose your financing, and the car would be delivered to your home. So that means that entire model is going to change. Airbnb, 25% of their workforce was laid off because of the COVID implications. So what happens to an Airbnb? What happens to hotels? What happens to airlines? So I think it's a great time to come into the workforce. There was a phrase mentioned earlier. I think it was Professor Mark when he said, crisis, there's opportunity. And that's how you should think about it as you're coming into this new dynamic of a workforce. So managing crisis, workforce disruptions comes around through the term that we call strategic workforce planning. And the model for that is understanding the strategy, and then you identify the key roles that's driving that. Well, that was disrupted. That entire model was disrupted because what do you think about essential workers? The people that were cashiers in a grocery store, the people that were driving the trucks to deliver. All of a sudden in the grocery business, those roles have been elevated to now being strategic roles. And this is how these things are happening. I spoke with a CEO from a hospital the other day, and he was talking about the challenges they were going through being on the front line. And he says, every day I'm taking notes. I'm keeping a journal as to what's happening. And my thought was, and the question I posed to him was, and what are you going to do with that? He says, I'm going to build a new development model. Again, building in different level of leaders. The leaders that had the titles, in a lot of cases, did not step up. It were leaders, maybe a nurse coming from a different area of focus, who came in and kind of took charge, naturally to just bubble to the top. So companies are looking for this. Next slide. So the next slide talks about the future of work. Now this was research that just came from Aon, what used to be Aon Hewitt. 84% of companies that were surveyed are trying to figure out this new model. 4-day work week, flexible work hours, all these. So the kind of standard thought was that if someone works from home, they're not going to be productive. That's a fixed mindset. And now organizations are going to have to switch and become a growth-minded culture inside of an organization. The other key piece that came up was, as it relates to education, 65% of children now entering primary school will hold jobs that currently do not exist. From your side, how are you going to develop for that? Workforce agility, the digital transformation, which is kind of a common theme that we're talking through. This is my third presentation today. At one time, pre-COVID, I would have been in Asia for at least a month and a half, and that was my normal schedule. I've been in Dubai since February. I traveled to Bangkok for a business assignment, and I got back here the next day or 2 days later, Dubai's airport closed. So I've been here, everything transitioned over. Flip it over, next slide. So here's some research that came out concerning productivity. Productivity increased. So the fixed mindset that I need to make sure my people are working, and someone mentioned to me on the call the other day, how do I make sure my people are working? Because I don't think they're working as hard as they would work in the office. Fixed mindset. I have to see you. If you're in the office, I know that you're working. We all know if we worked in an office, you have people that are there all day and don't produce. But now all of a sudden that's becoming a kind of a new filter because of the fact you're working from home. Decreased productivity, lack of mindset, or maybe I don't have a dedicated workspace. One of the technology companies, I think it was Google, gave each one of their employees $1,000 to spend on upgrading. Maybe it's a new chair. Maybe it's a desk, because if I lived in a studio, specifically say in Korea or New York, maybe I don't have the space for that. And maybe I may be one of the work type workers who wants to come back into the office because it's more organized. So what is that mix going to look like in trying to move it to the next level? Okay, next slide. So here's some positive behaviors, and this is why this is important. Decisiveness. This is what the CEO of the hospital talked about. He said, I watch people just take charge. The most commonly used buzzword today is agile. But how do you pivot? We've all pivoted. Our work model has changed. Your work model has changed. Are you comfortable in that environment? Are you comfortable with change? Volvo went through a major transformation years ago. And one of the key kind of descriptives, they would only hire leaders that had conceived or implemented major strategic initiatives, change initiatives. So that was their filter. They didn't want anyone coming in who wanted everything laid out for them. They wanted people to be able to think it through, and possibly come up with a solution. So we have collaboration, we have innovation, we have empathy. What are your people going through if you're managing people that are working from home? Are the calls that you have, your weekly calls, are you spending time through the lens of empathy? Or are you just going right to the KPIs and it's a strictly business call for 30 minutes or 60 minutes? Or do you really need 60 minutes? So when I say everyone is trying to figure out what this new model is going to look like, but I want you to remember those words, because if you're in the market of trying to look for a job, you want to make sure these are the kind of words that you have on your CV, because I'll talk to a way that you can kind of circumvent the system and get your CV, kind of get it to bubble to the top, but we'll talk about that. So let's flip it and look at skills that are needed based on research. Soft skills. I love Dr. Mathana when he talked about the leaders versus managers. If I were looking for a job, I would want to make sure I was able to weave that into a conversation. We were trained as leaders. We weren't trained as managers. So that's the skill set I'm bringing to you. Creativity, persuasion, collaboration, adaptability, emotional intelligence. Hard skills, right side. If you notice on hard skills, for the most part, it's centered around technology. So that particular job category is hot today. And those are called hot jobs, which are sometimes called premium jobs, which means there's an additional compensation structure for jobs that are hot, only because of the fact they need to hire people and you're competing against every other company that's looking for that. Okay, so now we're gonna flip back to from the educational side, and maybe walk through and looking at how are you going to approach a job opportunity. So let's flip it to the next slide. Keyword analysis. So there's a technique that's called word art. You've probably seen it. The words that are mentioned more will have a larger font size. And there's free word art technology online. But what I would suggest for you is to take your CV and filter it through that and see what words are being used the most. Now, there's a reason you're going to do that, because you want strong words, you want developed, you want created, you want designed. You don't want to use a term like managed or supervised, because that tells a hiring manager that you're good coming in and just managing a process. But what about if you had to create a process? How would you solution that from your end? How would you answer the question, why should I hire you? And a competent recruiter would ask that question. What would you say? I would do a lead-in on leaders versus managers. So from the time I was 18 years old, at our university, we talked through that framework of leaders versus managers. Now, the job description, you copy the job description, you put it in Word, and you do the same analysis. You see what keywords that are mentioned, and you make sure that you have those words inside of your CVs. Because a job is posted, that could be 400 CVs that come in to that portal. And software filters through it based on the job description, how close it is from that. And they're looking for keywords and the amount of times that's mentioned. So you identify those keywords. So how do you answer the question, you don't have experience? So I called out someone online. They had a job, they had it posted, and they wanted 20 years of experience. And then another one had 10 years of experience. And I asked them, who are you hiring for? Why would you, not negating 20 years of experience, but if I'm looking for agility, if I'm looking for innovation, if I'm looking for out-of-the-box thinking, maybe the 20 years experience is not the people that I want. If you think of Tesla, when Tesla was building the auto business, do you think they said, we want people that's been in the auto business for X amount of years? No, they didn't want that, because they wanted to innovate a new product. So flipping that over, and my last slide talks through growth mindset, fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is limited. A lot of managers inside of organizations are in that fixed mindset. I hear it every day. They're questioning whether people are working and all this kind of, I don't know where they arrived at all these kind of conclusions from. So you have organizations that are fixed mindset. And you also have organizations that are growth mindset. So if you look at a lot of the technology companies, they're growth mindset. And this is why you look to see a company that says, work from home until January 2021. My daughter's company, Advertising New York City, 2021, January. Twitter says, work from home forever, growth mindset. So I would venture to tell you, if you're looking to find a job, look on Glassdoor, #1, to see what's being said about that company. So someone told me, well, they're not using that over here. I don't care whether they're using it or not. You want to find out what's being talked about, what the culture is like. Will I thrive in that environment? Because if you come from a growth mindset and you go into that fixed mindset organization, the rules are this, the policies are this, and you can't do anything unless me being the boss guides you, instructs you, directs you how to do it. I think that's my last slide, and I thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thanks a lot. It was very interesting. I don't know if the study which said that with no commute time, the productivity increases. I'm not sure whether it included the academic fraternity or not. I'm sure my faculty members will be very happy to hear that. And it is very interesting, and further research can be done in this regard. Mm-hmm. Now, one question for the audience as well as for you, Ron. What is the most important skill the higher education institution should inculcate in students to make them ready to work in the corporate world? And there are a couple of options here. What do you think, Ron?
I'm going to say #2, critical thinking and problem solving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Coming into an organization, why should I hire you? Are you comfortable are you comfortable inside of an organization that's going through constant change? Some people need structure, and some people thrive on ambiguity, and they just work through it and they figure it out as they go along.
So probably with growth mindset, as you said, they will have more critical thinking and problem solving skills as well.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Ron. We can see now. Yes, so people are saying all of the above, but yes, the next one is critical thinking and problem solving. Right. They are not, no one is saying crisis management and resilience and team building and coordinating. So most of them are saying all of the above and followed by critical thinking and problem solving. Thank you, audience, for your participation. Our next speaker is, she's the last speaker, and she's Associate Vice President for Planning and Institutional Effectiveness and SAC-COC Institutional Liaison at Marymount University, and provides leadership in the university's efforts to develop and support integrated planning and a campus-wide culture of assessment. So, Anne, the floor is yours. I'm sure you will touch upon the quality aspect when it comes to online or remote teaching. Are you there, Anne?
Sorry about that. I was just saying, thank you for inviting me to join you. I've had a wonderful time listening to all of the speakers. I've taken a lot of notes, and I'm glad to be able to join you. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Marymount University so that we have the context. If you can flip to the next slide. We're located in Arlington, Virginia, in the Metro DC area, just down the road from George Mason, from Professor Mark's university. We're much smaller than George Mason. We're a private university with a very diverse student body. We're an emerging Hispanic serving institution with 22% of our undergraduates Hispanic. We're one of the most diverse universities in the southern region of the United States. And we're a Catholic university founded by a religious order whose goal is to place themselves and their resources at the service of those most in need of justice, so all may have life and have it to the full. And that mission really guides everything that we do. And that impacts the decisions that we make as well and how we serve our students. We have approximately 3,300 students in bachelor's, master's, doctoral programs. Most of the doctoral programs are professional programs. Before COVID, we had online programs, we had hybrid, blended programs, and the traditional face-to-face programs. We're accredited by SAC-COC, which is the Southern Regional Accreditor, as well as having a lot of professional accreditations. What our audience in the Middle East might not know is that universities in the United States are responsible also to their state council for higher education, as well as to the US Department of Education. So we report to all of these organizations, and we have to be compliant with all of their regulations and standards. During the shift to remote learning following COVID in March, we experienced the same things that George Mason experienced, that Florida International experienced, so I won't belabor all of those shifts that we had to make. I wanted to talk to you about the permissions that we had to get from our regional accreditors. So once we heard from the Department of Education in March that we needed to move completely online, we had to notify and receive permission to do this from our regional accreditor. So we asked for 60 days, they approved for 130 days, and then extended that without us asking for it to December 31st, when it became obvious that we were all going to be in a situation of uncertainty until at least Christmas. So we have that flexibility now. We were able to move all of our traditionally face-to-face learning to remote learning without asking for approval. Marymount already had approval to offer online learning, so it wasn't an issue for us, but other universities who had not had approval of online programs, those approvals were waived for this period. Having said that, the accreditors are very quick to remind us that while we can move online without necessarily getting approval for that, we are required to remain compliant with all of our standards, everything related to educational quality, to financial stability and long-term viability, to our institutional planning requirements, and to assessment requirements. None of those things have been waived. So we are still required to follow all of the SAC-COC standards. And this is very important when you think about moving to online learning, especially so quickly without the traditional quality controls that universities often have for this process. So how do you ensure that what you're doing is going to continue to provide the kind of high quality education that the accreditors expect of you? And how do you manage the financial implications of that, of all of the declines in enrollment over the summer and this coming fall, the financial impacts of the change we had to make in response to COVID on our campuses? How do we ensure that we remain stable and viable in the long term? And all of the regional accreditors, not just SAC-COC, required basically the same thing. And that also applies to the programmatic accreditors, like for nursing programs or physical therapy programs or teaching programs, that they made some allowances for moving to online education, but they continue to say that you must be compliant with all of their other standards. And none of this overrides our state policies for certification and licensure. For example, nurses and physical therapists and teachers all have to be licensed at the state level, and that those licensing requirements are independent of the professional or the regional accreditation. So, you know, if that license requires 200 hours of in-person training, that requirement was not lifted based on COVID. So our programs are scrambling to make sure that they meet all of the requirements within this new environment. In general, distance education is defined by accreditors as stated up here on the slide. It's the majority of the instruction. Generally, that means more than 50%. And of course, occurs when students and instructors are not in the same place. Approval is required when you do this for the first time, generally. And again, moving online doesn't mean anything different in terms of complying with all of our accrediting standards. So in terms of the awarding of credit hours, the qualification of faculty, all of those things don't change just because you're moving online. The next slide. So when we think about challenges, we're really thinking about, as we move online, and I agree that we're not going back to pre-COVID traditional face-to-face classrooms. As we move increasingly online, and that means hybrid courses, high flex courses, blended courses, as we add online components, or as we move fully online, there are a lot of things that need to happen right. And the challenges in terms of accreditation really are we going to be able to continue to provide the kind of robust, high quality education that our accreditors expect of us? So that means we have to make sure that our faculty are qualified, that they're trained and given the resources to develop a quality educational experience to our students, not just to move things online. Are we going to continue to be able to provide active, engaged learning to our students and not just have them passively watch lectures, because that doesn't really work in an online environment. Students disengage. The teaching methods and the course modalities that are difficult to move online, like lab experiences or other kinds of experiential learning, internships, practica, clinical experiences. How do we do that? People are struggling with this. They're offering some technology. They're innovating and they're thinking outside the box, to use some of our speakers' suggestions, in order to make this work. But this we'll have to find solutions to these things. The professional accreditation requirements, we have to continue to meet those and to manage those. Student engagement. One of the things we found as we moved online in the spring, and we did it so and some of the courses were not, well designed to engage our students, that students disengaged. The faculty were talking to them or had recorded lectures, and the students felt like, it didn't matter whether they were listening or not. How do you design online courses that will continue to engage their students? At Marymount, this is very important because we're known for our small class sizes and very personal connections to our faculty. So how can we move online and continue to give students that experience? Equity is a huge issue. A lot of our students don't necessarily have access to high-speed Wi-Fi at home. They don't necessarily have computers at home. Many of them tried to work this spring on their phones. That's definitely not going to work. They had relied on computers and labs at the university that they no longer had access to. Some of them don't have safe environments at home, or they don't have spaces like Ron was talking about where they can focus. Many of them shared one home computer with everyone else in their family who was also online. Some of them have insecure housing. Should cameras be turned on? A lot of our students, this was a big issue. Faculty wanted the cameras to be turned on in the Zoom lectures, and students didn't necessarily want that. Many of them were embarrassed by what their space was that would be shown in the camera. And they considered an invasion of privacy or make them subject to speculation. And so they didn't want the cameras turned on. So how do you respond to those issues? Accreditors require us to continue to provide student services and other resources that students would expect from an on-campus classroom experience. How do you do that? How do you continue to support learning wherever it takes place when it's not on your campus? How do you provide counseling services for students who are increasingly stressed by the isolation that happens when they're online? How do you provide student that sense of community one of the other speakers was talking about that students would expect on campus? How do you provide them with course tutoring and other kinds of student service support, access to library resources? We have to be able to answer all of those questions. And then of course, assessment and quality assurance continues to be an issue, and Leah talked about that in some depth. Another question is, how will we continue to be financially viable? Students might not want an online experience. They might decide to take a gap year or to not pay the premium that private universities require. So what happens then? How will we continue to plan for our long-term future and in a way that is financially viable? And are we going to be able to respond with flexibility? And I think this is one of the key questions for universities. We had a crisis before COVID, and that was a demographic cliff that we're facing with a declining birth rate. Gen Z students want things different from what baby boomers wanted or what our millennials wanted. So how are we going to be able to respond to their needs for the changing demand in our environment, for upskilling for new jobs, for stackable certificates, for universities who want to enter consortial relationships to help them better develop and launch new programs online quickly. Transfer pathways so students can take a few courses at one university and a few courses at another university and put together a degree. Reciprocity agreements, all of these things generally require approval from our accreditors, and that approval process could take up to 6 months. So how are we going to respond with flexibility, and how are we going to work with our accreditors so that we can streamline and give us some agility in this process while ensuring that we continue to provide a robust, high-quality education? Thank you again for letting me join you. I'm really excited by the conversation, and I hope that you all stay safe and well.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks. This was very interesting because as we aspire for SAC-COC, we are very soon going to submit our application. We can see that we have some of the similar challenges. I can see that it was interesting to note that opening the camera is one of the challenge there as well, because we faced a similar challenge, and the students, they were claiming that, it's like invading our privacy. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that it's very interesting to note, because similar challenge of student engagement, internship, and probably we might require to change the quality aspects, like how we are going to re-examine the quality assurance, and that raises this question that how has COVID-19 struck the education system and challenged the conventional mode of delivery? And these are 4 options. So as by the time the audience they give their poll, what do you think?
I would fall somewhere between the second and the fourth. I think we need to digitalize education where we can. We need to come up with some new models that rely heavily on technology and meet students where they are, rather than asking students to conform to, a somewhat older model of education. And I think the pathway to do this is really to emphasize student competencies. If we do that, then we can develop transfer pathways that will allow a great deal of flexibility in the way students encounter education.
Let's see the audience poll. So we can see that the first 2 are more important. People are not taking care and not considering much about re-examining the various aspects of quality assurance.
Professor Abhilasha, can I ask a question, please? Just one question. Can I ask?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Do you think Anne, she's working at Marymount or at UAE?
I'm sorry?
I strongly believe that that's what I said, that the challenges are so similar.
Yes.
And I'm saying, Anne, I felt that you are working with us because whatever you have mentioned, we have faced all those challenges. And,
that's correct.
And even we have reported to the CAA and the ministry how we have overcome all those challenges. We can send you a report, actually. About the executive summary, 65 pages, with all evidences and materialized evidences with this. When you were talking, I thought you are a member of the UAE family, rather. Although Marymount, we have an partnership agreement with them, and also with George Mason and other universities, and Florida as well. Thank you very much. I'm sorry to stop you guys. Thanks.
No, not at all.
Thank you, sir. That question was, that statement was very, for all of us, we agree that yes, because our challenges were so similar. When she was talking, it felt like she's one of us. We are open now to question and answer. And one of the questions has been asked for Dr. Al-Assaf. What is the future of accreditation in this new normal? That is with the continuation of digital delivery of the course. So, Dr. Al-Assaf, would you like to answer this question?
Well, yeah, I'll answer it from the perspective of UAE. Previously, accreditors, when they come to accredit programs, they look inside the box. For example, your faculty, they should have a terminal degree. You should have that student-to-faculty ratio and classrooms and what have you. Which sometimes, okay, you can check it inside the box. What about, for example, outside the box? So I think with time, using what's happening online learning, they will focus on 2 things that I hope they will do that. They will check and access. Are you giving access to more people, whether online, away from whatever? So do you have more people? They have access to the education system. And at the same time, they check the impact. You are graduating the students, where do they go? Do they find jobs? Do they contribute to the companies they are joining and so on? And less extend to the inside the box, because what is important is really giving opportunities to people, at the same time, having them contribute to the community. I think ministry is accepting more of that slowly. It's very difficult to convince the accreditation agency to move very fast, but at least they are gradually accepting that we need to change the standards in order to put more emphasis on access, impact, and accepting individualized learning for students rather than the classical program that every student has to go through. It's like a product line, a production line, and all of them doing the same. So we are optimistic, and actually COVID-19 helped us in order to make the ministry more convinced that there are different local applications.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Alyssa, for your answer. Another question goes to Anne, because you have mentioned about internship. What about science and technical labs? What about practicum courses? So how to ensure if the students are not able to take the internship, how to ensure that we are offering courses which requires actually the physical presence? And what will be the thought of accreditors in this regard?
Well, I think it's going to be innovation and sort of problem solving and trying to find new ways of doing things. For Marymount in the spring, what we did was we worked with our internship partners. All of our students are required to take internships, by the way. So we worked with our internship partners, and a lot of them agreed to provide online internships. So students were online as their own workers were working from home. They also worked from home with their companies that they had internships with. For other experiences, for other kinds of experiential learning and for labs and clinicals and things like that, I'm not sure that we have a solution yet. There are companies that are trying to develop software. There are simulations. I know that some of our nursing students were working with simulations online. But that accounts for a small part of what they're allowed to do, but they also have requirements where they actually have to be treating patients or working in labs. And so universities are coming up with some novel ways of handling this, bringing students in those programs lab experiences as required to campus and say, you can work online from your rooms, but we will be in the labs. So I don't know that I have an understanding of everything that everyone is doing, but I know that people are trying to come up with solutions. And it's great that, this is going to be a new way of.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Leah, there is a question for you, that how did the diversity among the students and faculty influence the shift to remote learning? Hani, we can take this question at the end, but I would like Leah can answer this question. You are muted, Leah.
Oh, am I? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So our institution was was built out of diversity. So I want to say the piece that influenced the shift there was really the access, and ensuring, much like Anne mentioned at Marymount, we too had the video issue with Zoom. We too were worried about our students' conditions, sending some of them home. Our student food bank was still trying to remain open to cater to students there. So I think none of that went away. And just ensuring that the university was still able to communicate to our students that even though some parts of campus aren't open, your university is still there for you. And I think we've done a very good job in that communication.
Mm-hmm. And there is one more question for you, that what's next in terms of instructional design and sustainable assessment model and achieving the desired outcome?
Yes, so the pandemic has highlighted the need and the opportunity to establish the role of learning design in higher education institutions. So building an ecosystem for faculty to evolve in their pedagogical model is critical in ushering the next period of innovation in our institution. So what we found effective specifically for assessments was to work with the faculty to ensure that assessments are more about the application and the student creating a product rather than defaulting to something like multiple choice. So instead of 100 question exams, students in summative assessments were asked to complete project-based assessments.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ron, there is one question that as employer, will you value the online courses same as normal face-to-face degree? You are muted, Ron.
What I'm finding from my side, online is working. The facilitation skills are different from someone facilitating in classroom versus online. And one of the speakers mentioned earlier about some of the professors were adept at using this new technology, where so many others did not feel comfortable, because you've got to be more engaging, more so than you would be inside of a classroom. But from what I'm gathering is people are saying, we can't wait until we start up again. I have a project coming up in Zurich, New York, and London, and it's all going to be online. And we didn't design it for being online, but we have to convert to that. So hopefully by the time we hit New York City, it will be back to facilitation, which I enjoy, versus being on this all day.
Thank you. That was quite diplomatic answer, by the way.
Abhilasha, can I ask a question, not a question really, to Anne, when she talked about the internship, practicum internship. There is any challenge now, for example, in United Arab Emirates? I'm asking you as a professor, Abhilasha, because now all the companies and even the government, they start working 100%. So why there is a challenge in this area to send the students to deliver or to take those internship, practical internships?
So that was one of the questions from one of the participants from the audience. But sir, yes, we face challenge in summer, and it was very difficult to place them.
I know, but I'm talking now, since the government and all the private companies, they start working 100%.
100%.
So yes, during this COVID, the first month, 3 months, we faced some challenges in this, and we used the online internship and whatever. But now I think we are not good. I don't know about United States, they're still closing or whatever. But for us, internship can be delivered physically in the training sites.
Inshallah, that's what we are expecting from fall. We have another question, sorry, and there are lots of questions for you, that the world now demands higher education institutions to be more agile. But the accreditation bodies, they are having a very fixed mindset. Would you like to comment on that?
Me?
No, Anne. It's for Anne.
I'm not sure that I would qualify it as mindset. I think that they have a very serious charge to ensure that universities provide this robust, high quality education, and that they're financially viable and accountable to their students and their families. And so I think that making very quick decisions could be harmful to that mission. What I can talk to you about SAC-CRC, they are trying to do some things that will make them more responsive. They're trying to streamline their substantive change process so that we can get those approvals faster than 6 months out. They're looking right now at accepting blocks of credit, where before we have to do a course by course equivalence for transfer credit. So this will be a big thing as we look at streamlining transfer pathways for students to allow them to do 2+2 agreements, or to transfer from institution to institution, or to take courses in the multiverse out there in learning, and pull together a degree from it. So I do think that they're trying to become more flexible, doing it in a cautious way so they don't detract from their mission. That's a big responsibility.
Thank you. So Dr. Al-Asaf, if you can, if you can answer this question, because one of the concern is that in case if all the institutions are going to be offering courses remotely in fall, how we can ensure that the students, they don't escape the classes in between due to saying that there was some technical issues, and they are regularly attending the class. Do you have any comments here?
Really, I don't know how to answer these questions. First of all, regarding the fall semester, all of us, we don't know what will happen in the fall semester. We are dealing with a virus. The problem is you cannot speak to a virus. Otherwise, we would have negotiated with the virus to do something. students, if they are serious, if they are not serious about their education, regardless whether it's face-to-face or online, they will not be serious. I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on the students whether they are really taking care of their studies. The faculty and the university, they do their best in order to provide them with the tools to make sure that they're actually committed. And, you know, there are various ways, you know, taking attendance. If they are at home, actually, some of our faculty, they take attendance, actually, if they are online. We want to make sure that they are there. And some of the faculty, they go to the extreme that they have to open their camera. Although we had issues like what Dr. Anne spoke before, that many people, they rejected actually to open the camera. Especially in our culture in UAE, females, they don't like actually to open. But, you know, some faculty, they said, look, I cannot really teach it without knowing that it is you. And when it comes to the exam, the whole thing becomes even worse. So I think at the end of the day, it depends on the students whether they would like really to be serious about their education and take advantage of the money which they are paying to the university. We try our best to control it, but at the end of the day, there is no 100% solution to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Can we take the last question,
Professor Abhilasha,
Hani? Yes, sir.
Professor Abhilasha, I don't know if you can invite Hani to display our software that to ensure the attendance for the students, because, you know, we found out that even the attendance been increased during COVID-19 in comparison with face-to-face classrooms. But we have implemented a system and using, as you said, the artificial intelligence software to see even they are there. They are not just keeping the camera on, or they put maybe pictures or whatever.
How many minutes they are not there?
How many seconds actually?
Yeah.
At what time they attend, at what time they left, at what time they switch off. So there are many technology. COVID-19, we learn from it a lot. There are many advantages. Yes, there are some disadvantages, but really we have increased our skills in this area. We don't know about it before. We have no idea about it, especially those universities, they don't have any course through online, blended learning, distance learning. For example, I'm talking about AUE. Marymount, they have some courses and programs online, so they know they have infrastructure. But what about those universities? They don't know nothing. Faculty, they don't know how to deliver it. Students, they don't know how to be in this area. Even we face a lot of disturbance from the student side and the faculty side, because they are living in small apartments. They have children, they are jumping, they are shouting, they are doing this, and somebody pulling the camera, somebody pulling but yes, the students, and I told all the faculty members, whatever you're going to do in an assessment, especially exam, the other side, the student, they are more clever and somebody help them to do a lot of things, okay? They are not sitting waiting only for us. So this is the attendance system. If you can see it on the screen. We have used it when they left, when they entered, at what time, how many minutes. We have used the system for attendance of the students. And I will let you some case, which is really, it was very strange for me. One faculty member, because the students, one of students, I think he or she, I can't remember, she didn't participate in the class. She considered this lady absent. And I said, come on, guys, slow down, not like this. Let us see, maybe she's shy to talk, she is embarrassed to talk. But yes, I agree with Dr. Assad that especially our university, I mean, I don't know, we have 85% national students, I mean locals, and about 45 ladies. And those ladies, they don't want to open the camera. They using the scarf, you know, even if they open the camera, you can see them only their eyes. I don't know who's behind this, she or he or somebody else. Who's sitting under the table, who's sitting in the front of them. But all these been really, we minimize them as much as we can with us. A university has no experience. Just please, guys, think about, we have zero experience in this. We don't have one course or one lecture online. But we moved because, as I said, nothing is impossible. And I know we are not going back to the traditional. And we have to think ahead. We have to be proactive rather than waiting for the CAA or for the SACS or WASC or NIASC. No, we have to think ahead, because this is how we're going to serve. I don't want to please any accreditation body. I should please my graduates. Those by default, if I graduate leaders, I will get the accreditation by default, not opposite. So this is, if we believe in this, we deliver a quality education, we graduate leaders, we believe in nothing is impossible, we will do miracles. If we open the doors and the windows and the corridors to students, supporting them, standing with them, helping them, not to pass, not to fail. This is not my business. This is there. Believe me, you will see from them miracles. They have potentials, the students, and we should not underestimate them. And also, even that when Marx talk about initiativity and creativity and emotional thinking and this and that, do we have such faculty members they can inject the students with those? I mean, when we talk about it, it's easy, but when we go and practice on the ground, we cannot find them. I mean, where you can find a professor or a faculty member, he can give deep theory, up-to-date industrial experience, and the soft skills, and research, and community service, and administrative. How you can find 5 in 1? I mean, this is the challenge. The challenge not only with the students. We should not throw everything on the students. Let us be responsible also that our faculty, they need a lot of training. They need a lot of encouragement. We should inspire them. We should support them. We should engage them. Okay, we should stand with them to let them and make them happy. Believe me, when we introduced the course of happiness at the university, the first people I engaged them in this course, the faculty members, not the students. Because if the faculty is not happy, how is going to make the students happy in the class? So this is, we have to start with ourselves, and then we move to our stakeholders. Not let us assess ourselves. It doesn't mean that I have a PhD or whatever, I'm on the top of the ladder. No, I'm still at the first step of the ladder in research and experience. And I'm now, with all these of 45 years of experience, I'm still attending training programs. So where is the harm? No harm.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
We need to be a continuous learner. And you are absolutely right, sir, that it's we have to train faculty as well as students. So this is the last question. And I would like to have the audience poll here as well as the panelists as well. So the mode of delivery in the next academic year should be considering the time, the constraints which are there. What is your opinion? So maybe you can, we will see the audience poll in a couple of minutes. Still they are answering. Yes, Hani, can we see the result now? So 69% are saying that it should be blended, mostly online with face-to-face, with few face-to-face classes. And I'm sure most of the panelists will also agree with this. We are coming to the closure now. We all will agree that this is a most disruptive and transformational time for the higher education sector. And despite the many uncertainties we all are facing, several fundamental truths still hold. Higher education shall remain a powerful and vital force in our society, and academic professionals like all of us, we need to understand how our world is changing and revisit the needed competencies for faculty members and students to help them solve the pressing problems of society, as mentioned by Professor Muthanna as well. With these words and on behalf of AUE, I thank all the panelists for their insightful presentations, and many thanks to the learned audience for their thought-provoking and active participation and their thought-provoking comments. Please stay safe and stay in touch to know more about our upcoming webinars and international conference next month. Professor Muthanna, you would like to say?
Just 1 second. I suggest to send to the audience and the panelists an appreciation letter and even a certificate of attending this gathering. Okay. Fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Muthanna. Thank you for your presence today. It is always very inspiring to have you. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, member of the panelists, and thank you, audience. Again, please stay safe, stay in touch, and note that our upcoming webinars will be posted soon, and our international conference, AUE IRC, is going to be next month. Thank you very much for attending this webinar.